Hey, this is Ish Monroe here. One of the most favorite things I love to do, that's frog fish. You know, everybody knows I'm one of the best froggers out there. I love catching fish on frogs because the bites are explosive and it catches big fish. You know, but you gotta get set up with the right frog. You know, Ish's Fat Frog is definitely the right frog for you. One thing about it is it has a chamber completely separate from the cavity of the body, so you never get water in it. For all you guys out there who have ever had to squeeze your frog to get water out of it, no more. You know, Ish's Fat Frog eliminates that, so you never get water in the cavity of the body, so it stays floating every single time and it never sinks. You know, this color here is called crystal clear it is. You know, it's one thing you can do is you can paint it, you can do whatever you want to it, works excellent in clear water. Talking about clear water, let's really get into colors. Colors are very important. You know, on bright sunny days, I like white, light colors. You know, it shows up real well, real in clean water. But you get those darker days in dirty water, you know, I go to a black color. You know, this one here is called Papa Midnight. So in those darker days, you definitely want to make sure that you're fishing the black color. And then in between, you know, those partly cloudy days, I mix in a green one, OG, original green, or Sexy-ish, which is my bluegill pattern for when the fish are on bluegill beds. You know, I've got brown ones, I've got black ones, I've got black and yellow, you know, for all the guys out there in California. You know, it just imitates pretty much anything and everything. You know, don't be mistaken. When you're fishing a frog, you're not just trying to imitate frog. You're imitating bluegill, you're imitating crappie, you're imitating shad, you're imitating gophers. You know, I actually one time I had a fish eat a gopher right in front of me. I pull out a brown one and catch that fish, and he still had the gopher in his mouth. So that tells you when you're out there fishing a frog, it imitates just about anything that a bass wants to eat. So now that you got your colors set up, now we got to get into the equipment. Equipment is very, very important when you're out there fishing frogs. You know, it's kind of like you don't want to take a knife to a gunfight. You want to show up with a 7'4" heavy action rod. This particular rod here is a Daiwa Steez rod, designed by me just for frog fishing. High speed reel, Daiwa Zillion Type R, 7:3-1. You want a high gear ratio reel so that you can take up the slack really quick, work that frog appropriately, and then most importantly is the line. Maxima 65-pound braided line. When I'm out there fishing those thick heavy mats, I'll sometimes go down to 50. If I'm fishing in places that doesn't have a lot of cover in it, I'll move down to 50 to make those longer casts with it, but minimum 50. Most of the time 65-pound Maxima braided line, and you're gonna be pretty much ready to go. So let's go frog fishing. A couple things to remember, you know, when you're frog fishing. When one of those fish comes up and eats it, you wanna set that hook, zero drag. The reason I like this reel, 13 pounds of drag on this Daiwa Zillion Type R. So you can completely lock down the drag. You're fishing 65-pound Maxima braided line, so you can tow a truck with this line. So you set the hook hard, you reel, and you swing that fish in the boat. I can tell you, 7, 8, 9 pounders I've swung the boat before on a frog, because when you sit there and you fight them, it gives a frog an opportunity to pop out of his mouth. You know, there's two different versions of Ish's Fat Frog. You have Ish's regular fat frog and Ish's poppin' fat frog. You know, as you can notice out here, we're on a pretty flat, calm day, you know, so I use the regular fat frog because what we have called is walking the frog. That's where the frog is basically doing like a walking topwater bait where it walks back and forth. So you can see it basically going from side to side. And what that does is that really triggers those big fish into striking. What you can do is you can actually take this bait, throw it into a pocket, sit it there, and twitch it, and make it walk in that same spot. And what that does is those big fish, especially when they're in that pre-spawn mode and they're not really, you know, super aggressive, you want to work that bait really slow. Then as the water starts to warm, you get into the spawn and post-spawn, you want to start ripping that bait a lot faster across the top of the water. Another great thing about the frog is you can throw it pretty much anywhere, anytime, any place. You know, as long as, for me, the water temperature's over 56 degrees, it's time to be out there frogging. Ish's Fat Frog can be thrown in any type of cover. You can throw it in the heaviest of heavy stuff. You can throw it over limbs. You can throw it in grass, and it's gonna come right out. And that's the great part about it is now that it's snag proof, you can put it in areas where the big bass live. Because for me, the biggest bass live in the heaviest cover. Duckweed, excellent places for throwing a frog. Like I said, don't be afraid to pitch it right in the middle of the heaviest cover, because those fish will come through that grass to eat the bait. See a little pocket back in there, pitch it back up in there. And I'll just dangle it right there in that little pocket. And the fish will actually come up through there and eat it. I throw frogs around every type of structure out there. Open lily pads, rocks, docks, grass, you name it, that's where I'm gonna throw the frog. And the big fish will definitely come up and eat this thing. Now we're gonna get into Ish's Poppin' Fatty. It's a poppin' version of the frog. What it is on those days that you get a little breeze out there or you need to make some more noise, this is the frog to go to. I mean, you could take this frog and throw it out there and you can just pop it and make big old popping blurps. And it just really triggers fish into striking when you need to create a lot of noise. Sometimes the fish want it subtle, sometimes the fish want it loud. And so Ish's Poppin' Fatty is definitely the way to go. And then on those breezy days where the wind's picked up a little bit and the fish really need to find the bait, you definitely want to go with the poppin' version. Throw it over limbs, comes right out. Excellent bait for guys getting, kids out there fishing, because you don't have to spend a whole bunch of time, fighting with the kid getting hung up, because it's pretty much snag proof. And then the popping of this is just, just like if you popper, just pop the rod down. And once again, you're still fishing it on the 65-pound Maxima braided line. Right now we're fishing in open water, really trying to figure out how to get these fish into striking. So I'm popping it really loud, making really big pops, trying to, maybe pull these fish from a long ways. Like I said before, you can fish the frog anywhere, but I really like especially fishing around grass. Heavy matted vegetation, the biggest fish live there. And the great part about this bait, once again, you can throw it right up in the middle of that stuff and it's gonna come right out. And it's actually gonna present a bait to the fish that they normally don't get to see in a place that they normally don't get to see baits. They're really comfortable up underneath there. Work it through it, you work it on the edges of it. I mean, the fish can be anywhere. The fish that are definitely sitting on the edges are the ones waiting for you to throw your frog by. You find an isolated piece of matted vegetation, you definitely want to throw it by it, just like that right there. Work it across it, make a couple pauses. Let it sit there right in the hole for a second. Work it back through. It's like a frog trying to skip across the pads. You can make wide walks with it, short walks with it. Let the fish dictate to you on how they want your bait presented. And that's with any bait that you're fishing. Don't be afraid to put this frog in places you would normally not throw a bait. Got him, there he is. See, you just keep winding and you wind him through that stuff and you swing him the boat. And that's frog fishing for you guys right there. It's just that frog. You set the hook on them, crank them in, wind them through the thickest possible cover. I mean, simply, that's what the big line is for. Maximum 65-pound braided line, folks. Heavy rod. Daiwa Zillion reel, 7-3-1 high-speed gear ratio, allows you to crank these fish in, catch big bass just like this. Casting accuracy, very important when frog fishing. Being able to put that bait in places that normally don't get to see baits. Having a little bit of tip to that extra heavy action rod allows you to skip that bait into places, again, where most people can't get a bait. And if you can present a bait like that, you're definitely going to increase your odds of getting that bite. And when you increase your odds of getting that bite, you increase your odds of catching more fish. Got it, big one. Oh my God, that's a big one. That's a real big one. That's a giant one. Look at that one. And that's what I'm talking about right there. That's what you catch when I say swinging them in the boat. Oh my goodness. Oh. Ish's Fat Frog. This is Ish Monroe, Beyond the Basics. This is what you catch when frog fishing. Guys, go out there, give it a shot, and you catch giant bass like this one.